Hi, welcome to episode 236 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea where I sell my handspun yarns, and we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, July 8th, and the Tour de Fleece is on. I don't know what you did this weekend. Here in the US, last Thursday was our July 4th Independence Day holiday. Many people chose not to work on Friday. I worked a little bit, but of course I work from home, and actually I went out and had a lovely lunch with a friend. And then this weekend we went to a barbecue at a friend's house, which the food was great, and actually it wasn't even sweltering after about 7 o'clock, so we sat outside and they had a fire pit, and I didn't get eaten alive by mosquitoes, and it was great. So we had a really great weekend. A lot of what I did was spin for the Tour de Fleece. And I tried to watch the race. I was a little bit frustrated. Several years ago, NBC acquired the rights to air the Tour de France in the US, and their streaming app leaves something to be desired. I had a lot of trouble getting it to work this weekend. Because honestly, I love nothing more in the summer, particularly in July when it's hot, to sit indoors in the air conditioning and watch the bike riders ride all over France and spin. So this podcast will be a little short today because I don't have a ton to show you, but I do have a finished knit, which is exciting. I have a knit that I hope will be finished shortly. I can talk a little bit about what I'm casting on next, and then I'll show you what I'm spinning. So, I should say that the big event that's going on in the Ravelry group right now is Tour de Fleece. Every year we have a team. I am delighted to see so many of you joining us again this year. We have lots of returning folks, and I just got notification today that a company is sending us some fiber as a prize. So I will have that. I don't want to announce that until I actually have it in hand, which should be next week. And then I can share that with you, but that will be a little bit exciting. I'll probably go ahead and hold that for one of the grand prizes, and I had already picked out a prize, so we'll probably just have two winners at the end. That'll be fun. So if you're looking for details, you can check out the Ravelry group. There are links in the down bar below to the Ravelry group, and you'll see there is a Tour de Fleece thread. We are Team CKT. The hashtag is Team CKT 2019. And I am delighted to see so many of you participating. If you are still looking for a team or just want to join one, please join us. Unfortunately, you have to be a spinner to win the prizes this time. The prizes are all fiber too, so it would help if you're a spinner. This is a spinning event. I will come up with another knitting event, or knitting and crocheting and general crafting event for later in the summer or early fall. So that's what's going on here. Let's go ahead and get started. I am drinking tea today in my Sip Something Sinful mug, which was a Hallmark mug, and it occurred to me that I really should be adding liquor to my mug because it says Sip Something Sinful, and I don't know that tea is terribly sinful. It's delicious, but it's not sinful. And then I contemplated making a pot of coffee and throwing some Baileys in there. And I will tell you it's 3:30 in the afternoon here, so it's not 5 o'clock, but it's also not like 9 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, today I'm just drinking tea. I am drinking licorice spice from Stash, which is an herbal. It tastes like black licorice. I know that's not everyone's favorite thing. It is one of my favorite things, and it's particularly one of my favorite things when I have a sore throat, which I do not today. But I find it particularly useful when I am ailing. So I'm drinking it today because it sounded good when I rifled through the big box of tea samples. So that is delicious. And actually that is one that is sweet enough and spicy enough that I can drink it without sugar, because I just realized I did not put any sugar in there, and I usually do. But it is good. So let's talk about the knits. I had a surprise finish this week, and I won't wax too poetic about it because it was kind of a short finish. It is my shorty socks. As you remember, or if you weren't with me, I knit one of these when I went to Ireland. in Scotland. I knit it on the plane. The yarn is mustache yarn, and it is the 10 Days of Fiesta. It is 10 stripes for San Antonio's Fiesta Days, and then I used some contrasting purple, which came from my lovely friend Christine at Treasure Goddess Yarns, as a contrast heel and cuff. And I did these as super shorties, which I love. They're it's sort of, I don't know. I mean, I was inspired by the Rose City rollers, but I don't do the rolling cuff. I actually did do 10 rows of ribbing for my shorty sock, and then I just did a regular heel flap and gusset and the regular sock. So I don't know that I should necessarily call them Rose City rollers, although I would be negligent if I didn't say that that's kind of what inspired me to knit them this way. I knit a pair of shorties out of Stroll, Knit Pick Stroll, ages ago, and they are one of my favorite pairs of socks, and I always wear them. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make more shorty socks, and they are particularly wonderful in summer if I'm gonna be indoors and it's air conditioned, but I don't want like big thick socks. So these are just some shorties. Basically what happened was, I think last when I talked to you, I had just cast on like the very first rows of ribbing. We were off Thursday, we drove around, we went shopping, we went to our friend's barbecue, which was an hour away, and my husband always drives and I always knit, and it's a shorty sock. So like I said, no great accomplishment, but I did go ahead and finish these socks. So that is something finished and can go on my stash dash list. I am sort of playing along with Stash Dash this year. I haven't posted in the actual thread. I just always tally what I do over the summer. And that is sponsored by run by the Knit Girls, Laura and Leslie. And their podcast is Knit Girls with 3 L's, GIRLLS. And Stash Dash is basically an excuse to use up your stash and tally it and push yourself. You're basically just competing against yourself, no one else. There are all kinds of goals. There is, I think, 1 kilometer, 3 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, and I think they went up to 15 and 25 and insane things this time. The closest I've ever gone is 10 kilometers. I should also say that I don't, so they've adopted Spinzilla rules, which is you count the singles you spin as yardage, and then you also count the plied yarn. I haven't been doing that. I've just been counting like what I spin. That said, I am up to about 3,000 kilometers for this summer. I think it's just that I've been doing lots of sweater knits and lots of samples, and I spun some stuff, and I knit those hand spun shawls, which used up a lot. So I'm actually at 3 kilometers, which is great. I should say I'm at 3,000 meters, which is 3 kilometers, because I think I said 3,000 kilometers, and that I did not mean. So I'm adding these to the list, and that was just kind of an unexpected finish. Like I said, I knit these when we're in the car and running around town because I've been doing some sample knitting and they're a little bit more complicated. So I haven't like taken them in the car where I don't have to pay attention, or to a barbecue where I can sit and knit. I have lots more of this yarn. Part of the reason I knit shorties, I wanted shorties, but part of the reason I knit shorties and I did the contrasting cuff and heel is because I also want to get socks for Roxy and Miles out of it. So I have started on Miles' pair, and I think I'm only through the cuff at this point on his. So I'll be bringing those back to show you eventually, but like I said, this was just kind of an extra finish this week. The big project that I'm working on, this is called the Riverton Tea, and T-T-E-E, not T-E-A, and it is by Sheila Toy Stromberg. Yeah, I did remember. This is a beautiful sample knit that I am knitting for A Good Yarn Sarasota. She basically picked the pattern and picked a yarn she has in stock, and I've been knitting it. I made a ton of progress on this week. I should say I am knitting it out of Anzula Breeze, which is their linen and silk lace weight. I want to say it's a 65-35 linen and silk. And it is in the colorway Alice, which is this great kind of a pool aquamarine blue. And I have gotten pretty far. It's a little hard to show you because of where it's at. Last week I was still knitting in the round, and I told you I wanted to get up to the shoulders, I told you I wanted to get up to where I split for the sleeves. So I have done that now, And now I am working on the back pieces. And so this is, the back has a keyhole feature with a button, and this is one of the sides of the back, and this is the other one on the needles ready to be knit tonight. So then when I finish the back, I will go and continue to pick up on the front stitches. The front of this tee has a really nice pleat right in the center. It's really beautiful. And then some cap sleeves, and then I am done. So my hope is that I finish this in the next few days, wash and block, show it to you next Monday, and then go ahead and send it off. And by the time I am done, I believe this calls for about 975 yards. So we're talking another 1,000 yards or so towards my stash dash totals, and another sample out of the house. It does look fairly wide. It is an A-line tunic, and like I said, some of the fabric gathers up at the top, and it is also in a size extra large. So it is not meant to fit me. It is a sample. So that is what I've been working on this week. I think I had maybe about 10 inches when I talked to you last week. So I did a lot of work this week. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm basically being a monogamous knitter, except for occasional working on things in the car or running around. So I've been pretty good on this. And like I said, I hope I will finish it and be able to show it to you next week and then move on, because my docket is full. The one last thing I wanted to show you about knitting is what I am going to be casting on. Last week I showed you some Brown Sheep Cotton Fine, which is Brown Sheep's cotton sort of fingering weight yarn in a dark teal, and I wanted to show you what I'm going to knit. I am going to knit the Breezeway by Laura Ayler, which is a really sweet, simple tee. So that is the picture on Ravelry. It calls for right around the amount of yardage that I have. So hopefully I won't run short on that, but I'm going to cross my fingers, and I can always make it a tank top if I need to. I can't tell if it's, well, it looks like it's yoked, but I guess I can make it capped sleeve if I need to, if I run short. But that is my next project. I'm hoping that will wrap up pretty quickly. I have already swatched for a new sample that I will need to be working on this month as well, although I can't show that one to you because that one is private. And then I received some yarn in the mail, and I'm going to be designing something in it as well as reviewing the yarn. So I will bring that back and show you once I get a little far into my next one. I'm sorry I'm kind of going one at a time. It's not very me, but between spinning and trying to crank out these samples by the deadline, I am really finding that concentrating on one project has been the way to go. I have a million things I want to cast on, and I'm sure that will be coming up. So let's move on to the next topic, which is spinning. Spinning is what I've been doing a lot of, except I don't actually have a lot to show you. The tour kicked off on Saturday, but actually I started spinning on like Tuesday or Wednesday last week because I was eager to start and pull out my wheel. I didn't do any spinning in June, which is so unlike me, but of course I was gone the first 2 weeks and then I traveled the third week, so I didn't really have a good time to sit down and start something. So my hope is, I have no hope of making 18 pounds in 2019, or 19 pounds in 2019. I'm not even sure I have a hope of making half that, which would be 8.5 pounds in 2019, because my spinning has just slowed down. But I am happy to spin when I spin, and I am feeling invigorated by the tour, so I am working on spinning. Let's talk about what I'm spinning. This is some beautiful fiber. I showed it in the bag last week, but I didn't take it out, and I really should have. This is Hello Yarn. It is basically, so she does these things where she puts up a pound of fiber in a bag, and most of the time it is odds and ends. And that is what I thought was in my bag, but it turns out when I opened the bag to start dividing it, it was all one piece of fiber. So basically I have 14 ounces of this. The label on the bag said test dye number 25. If you remember, I was a little confused by that because I thought it should say patchwork kit, but it didn't say patchwork kit. So it has purple, this nice purple. It has kind of this yellowy, swampy, poisony green, and then it has lots of red, both kind of orangey, leaning into the green, and then also kind of a dark red ruby and pinky, and then we've got some browns and some more of the swampy green, and then more of the purple ultimately. This right here is 3.5 ounces. So I had 14 ounces total, and when I went through and found out it was all one piece of fiber, I went ahead and I divided the fiber in half. And that was just so that I could spin 2 equal bobbins and then ply it together. So I had roughly 7 ounces for each half, and then I decided to, I had to decide how to spin this. And it's 14 ounces of fiber, which is pretty close to a pound. And my guess is I can get around 1,200 yards out of this, which would be enough for a simple cardigan or pullover, as long as I don't get too detailed. So my thought was that I would spin it for a sweater, and then I tried to decide what kind of sweater I wanted. And I decided actually that I thought I might like to do a fractal spin, because when you spin fractally, it gives you subtle striping. And for those of you who are new here, I'll just give a brief explanation of fractal spinning. Fractal spinning is basically where you divide the braid, well, and technically I'm not actually doing, okay. I'm not actually being true to fractal. So I'll explain what fractal is and then I'll say what I'm doing. Okay, usually in a fractal spin, what you do is you take a braid and you lay it all out and you divide it in half vertically. So you basically divide the whole fiber in half. You would pull it apart like this. And at the end, you would have roughly 2 equal strands of fiber that are each approximately half of your full braid. Then what you would do is you would spin 1/2 end to end. So you wouldn't divide it up, you would just spin it, and what you would get are longer color runs because you have longer chunks of fiber in those color runs. Then what you would do with the other half is you would spin it in its entirety. Sorry, let me go there. Then you would take the other half of the fiber and you would divide it into 2 or 3 or 4 smaller pieces. So you have much smaller pieces with much shorter color repeats. It's the same length, but it's not as much fiber. So you'll get a shorter repeat. And then you spin these end to end, top to toe, in the same order, usually. And then what happens is you have one longer repeat of a color and a lot of these short repeats of color. And what it does is it creates a subtly striping plied yarn. So that is how you do a fractal spin. I am not technically doing a fractal spin, although I'm kind of following some of the procedures. So what I said was I had a 14-ounce braid. I actually laid the braid out and then I folded it in half and then I divided it in half horizontally. So the 2 halves are actually not in the same dye. They are not the same dyed repeat. They are actually different repeats because her braids aren't necessarily like end to end. They may not be, it's dyed in similar striping order. However, a length of braid may have not, the 2 halves may not be dyed equally, if I'm explaining that correctly. So basically, rather than dividing it this way, I took it in half and divided it this way. So that's what I did. And so then I had 7 ounces of fiber and 7 ounces of fiber. I decided that I wanted one to be really long color repeats. And at first I thought I would just spin it straight through. However, when I opened up the braid and I looked at it, there are these really long color runs of red. And my concern was that if I spun what amounted to maybe an ounce or an ounce and a half of red all at the same time, I would have nothing but a big block of red. So what I did was I divided that half of braid into 2. So again, I divided it vertically and I divided it into 2 segments. Then I'm spinning those segments end to end. So this is the second quarter. I mean, it's a half of a half. So this is the second 3.5, sorry, I'm getting all tangled here. This is the second 3.5 ounces of fiber that I'm spinning in long color repeats. So basically I spun a braid just like this, or I spun fiber that was just like this. And these are identical to each other. So I should have 2 complete repeats. And To be honest, I am actually mixing it up. I'm not spinning them top to toe. I'm spinning them top to toe and toe to top because there was just this little bit of purple at the end and then it was going to start over in red. So I decided to put this end of purple with the other end of purple so I have a big chunk of purple in the middle. So that was just my personal preference. Let's see how complicated I can make this and how difficult I can make this to explain to you. And I'm like completely destroying my fiber here. Okay. So I have spun my first 3.5 ounces of fiber. That's what I did a little bit last week, but mostly Friday and Saturday and Sunday. And now I have the next 3.5 ounces ready to go. So I'm going to start this probably right around the time I finish with you. And see if I can turn on the tour and spin for a few hours before my husband gets home. And then maybe I'll spin later this evening, or maybe I will work on my sweater. So that is kind of the plan for this. I also have the other half, which I will then divide into much tinier segments, probably 4, 6, maybe even 8, because it's a big, thick bump of fiber. And then I will spin those, and those I will probably... I don't know what I'll do with those. I might spin them top to toe and toe to top and just continue all the way through. When you do it that way, it does blend because like the other end is red. So putting the red against the purple is weird. But if I fade in through, I don't know. This is very complicated and I feel like I am making a whole mess of this. I did not take the bobbin off the wheel because it's all in there nice and I have nice tension and I didn't want to mess with it. So I'm going to spin this next segment and by next week I will bring you this bobbin and I will have started on the second bobbin so I will be able to show you that one as well. So this is my first spin for the tour. I don't know how quickly I'm going to go on it just because I have other commitments and so I'm not spinning as much as I usually do. That said, my guess is I will finish this 14. Usually in the past I spend anywhere between £1 and £2. So my guess is I will finish this 14 ounces and then maybe do another braid or two. I would be pleased if that's what I got done. I would love to put up a few new things in the shop. I have a couple more braids I'd like to spin for me. And of course, I pulled aside some braids to give away to you. So if you are spinning in the Tour de Fleece and looking for a team, come join us, post in the thread. Over the course of the next 3 weeks as the tour runs, I will be drawing a random number generator and giving prizes from, drawing the random number generator and giving away prizes according to conversation in the thread. So come show us what you're working on, come cheer other people on, and the more you participate, the more chances you have to win. Then I have a bag of fiber from me, which will be one final prize, and then I also am getting that other final prize from the company. So I will have that hopefully to show you next week. So I think I wasted enough time on what is essentially 3 projects. And I will let you get back to your crafting and your other podcasts and anything else you may have to do. I appreciate you taking the time to join me today. I hope I didn't make too much of a mess trying to explain how I was spinning. And I hope you have a lovely week ahead. Spinning if you're spinning, and if not, just crafting. And I don't want to say just crafting. Have fun with anything that you are crafting. I will say until I see you next week, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.